Welcome to Haunted Washington. Follow me as I uncover the history, horrors, and hauntings behind locations in Washington State. It's Friday the 13th, and we're celebrating the launch of our first episode at the Haunted Washington podcast. And for this special episode, I decided to tell you about some spooky locations in my very own hometown, Arlington. North of Seattle by about a half hour, and then a few miles off the freeway sits a small town of about 20,000 people. Its main street has quaint antique shops, old-fashioned diners, and one of the coolest hardware stores you'd ever see. Arlington is a relatively quiet small town that you might not have heard of. For its small size, it has its share of creepy and haunted locations. When you take the turn off Highway 9 towards the town, you'll see a large building that's seemingly out of place. It looks like some Alamo replica perched at the end of a large main drag going through downtown. This building is currently known as the Mirkwood Public House. It's not always been the cool hangout spot that it is today. The building that houses the Mirkwood Cafe was originally built in 1898 as a Methodist church. At one point, the building suffered a catastrophic fire and burned to the ground, but it was rebuilt within a year. In 2004, the current owners began a massive project of renovating the 110-year-old former church. And at that point, the building was abandoned for more than 12 years before they started, having previously been occupied by a Boys and Girls Club. After the renovations, the Alamo building resurfaced as the Mirkwood Cafe. The cafe contained a restaurant, 2 bars, a tattoo and piercing shop, and multiple venues for large music events and gatherings. Now, the only death reported in the building that I could find was in 1982 when a guy named Barry killed himself there. I couldn't find out how or why. All I could find was that his uncle was the caretaker for the building when it was still pretty much run down, and they lived in the downstairs areas. Employees at the cafe have experienced their fair share of paranormal experiences, and they're happy to share them with you. If you ask, they'll tell you about a bartender who reportedly quit after he felt like he was shoved in one of the bathrooms by an unknown force. He was in there alone and felt a push on his shoulder, turned around, and no one was there. He was apparently so distraught from this that he finished serving his tables for his shift, cashed them out, and then quit and never returned. In one area of the venue sits a piano that employees and patrons say have a tendency to play itself when no one's in that area. In that same room, a female employee said that she clearly heard her name called out by a girl when there were only 2 other people in the restaurant and they were both guys. On the top floor between the tattoo parlor and the office, small blocks are placed on the windowsill in an attempt to attract the spirit of a small girl named Samantha. Samantha's reportedly been seen running up and down the halls at night. Employees even say that they can hear her sometimes when they're closing. Customers also have shared their creepy experiences in the Mirkwood Cafe. I found a number of them. One customer said that if you walk by the building, especially at night, and look towards the basement windows, you'll see a flicker of light. If you look in the second floor window, you'll see a girl standing there on the corner who looks to be dressed in all white. The windows on the second floor are the first from the right, according to this customer. Another person reported this. When they were younger, they spent the night at the Mirkwood because their friends' parents owned the building. They woke up late at night to use the restroom and something followed them. They could feel it breathing down their neck. The whole night they slept there, they felt whatever that was watching them. They said that they never stay there now past a certain hour. In the summer of 2017, another female customer said that she went to the Mirkwood for karaoke. She said she had a few drinks but wasn't drunk. She went to go use the restroom and felt the overwhelming feeling that someone was watching her. She turned around to see who was there and the hallway was completely empty. Later in that same summer, a patron stopped by the Mirkwood Cafe for a late lunch. He reported the following. I haven't been to Arlington before, but I stumbled upon this place. Immediately upon entering, I felt something around me. The place was very quiet at this time. I sat down and immediately felt surrounded. I ended up eating my lunch in the outside seating area, but I still felt weird, unexplained vibes. I asked the waitress if this place was haunted, and she said it was, and they actually don't discourage the spirits. The final encounter I found was by a customer who said he's made contact with one of the entities in the building. He says his grandma is a Native American shaman, and growing up he was told never to go to this place. When he began experiencing spiritual things, he decided to go and see what would happen. He said that he was on shrooms and brought a Ouija board with him. He also says that he contacted an entity named Abby, who was burned to death in the church. He said that she showed him things pertaining to his life in exchange for some kind of help, and he was unsure of what she actually wanted. He also says that he's come back multiple times to use Ouija boards and still doesn't know what Abby wants. Employees and their regulars are happy to share their paranormal stories with you if you decide to visit. They even have a Ouija board built into a table in the basement. Mirkwood Public House is likely Arlington's most haunted building, but you'll have to go see for yourself. If we continue our drive through Arlington, up a few streets from the Mirkwood Public House, you'll find an impressive school building with the name Roosevelt on the top of the facade. This building is currently an administrative building for the Arlington School District, but at one time, it was known as President's Elementary School. This building was originally known as the Roosevelt School and was built in 1921. It housed students from elementary school age. Legend has it that on the top floor of the condemned gym building, you can still see a class wearing old clothing from the early 1900s walking around. I looked all over online and I couldn't find any specific encounters from people, only articles about the alleged haunting above. But if you know of any stories of this building, please reach out to our Haunted Washington Instagram page, shoot us a DM and let us know. If you continue to drive down that same street, French Ave, away from the old President's Elementary, you'll see another large historical looking building on your left. That's the old Arlington High School. The original building was constructed in 1908, and the first students took classes there in September of that year. The first graduating class was only 3 students. The school was originally constructed to house 90 students, but as the town grew, they had to expand on it. In 1921, an auditorium was built. On July 11, 1934, the high school was completely destroyed by a massive fire. The fire was discovered in the home ec building, but quickly spread to the garages. The Everett Fire Department had to come up to Arlington to assist in controlling the blaze because it was already out of control by the time Arlington Fire arrived. In 1936, a new high school was built. It was constructed to be much larger, to house 900 students. That's the building you'll still see there today. This was called the Washington Building, and it was used as Arlington High School until 2004. The Washington Building was known for its beautiful architecture and balconied auditorium. It is rumored that there's a hidden tunnel or secret room underneath the building. I remember hearing this multiple times growing up from different people who said that they wandered in after hours and found this room. After 2004, the Washington Building was housed by Highland Christian School, and the Boys and Girls Club also had a facility there. I remember the last time I saw it, there was a small consignment shop in the building, but that's probably gone. I remember that the consignment shop employees would be pretty bad about locking the doors at night, so you'd hear that kids would sneak in and explore after hours. The building has 2 major tragic events historically. A man doing maintenance on the auditorium roof fell through it and hit his neck on the back of one of the auditorium chairs. He broke his neck and died in that building. Another report is that a cheerleader was said to have died in the building, but I couldn't find out how. One report was that she was accidentally thrown from the balcony in an assembly, but I couldn't find a legitimate source for this. It's said that they can both be seen walking through the top floor of the school at night. The maintenance worker has mostly been spotted in the auditorium. The story behind the lost room is still unknown. In recent history, this building was involved in a child rape case when the principal of Highland Christian School was fired and arrested in 2008. At that time, Highland Christian School occupied the building. The principal had a sexual relationship with a 14-year-old student who he kept in a secret room with a bed and a TV. He also reportedly provided her with alcohol while he housed her there. The girl was reported missing by her parents, but then they discovered hundreds of texts and phone calls on the girl's cell phone with the principal. The fate of the Washington Building is unknown at this time. The town's trying to find someone to take it over now that all the previous tenants have left. As the building sits there, empty, do you think there are spirits wandering the halls at night? As you venture from downtown, you'll likely never see the spot if you're not looking. A small creek branching from the Stilly River, named Eagle Creek, runs through rural Arlington. You'll know you're close to it because you'll see an elementary school named after the creek. The entire area surrounding the creek has varying levels of forest. Some areas are occupied by a mobile home park, but others are densely covered by massive trees and woodlands. This whole area is said to once be occupied by Native Americans. People have reportedly seen Native Americans wearing traditional garments, walking next to the creek in the woods. Another common phenomenon in this area is people getting lost on one trail and ending up miles away from where they started, with no idea how they got there. If you decide to go visit that area, make sure you bring your phone so you don't get lost. As you leave Arlington and head into Snohomish County towards Lake Goodwin, you'll see a long road that goes up a very steep hill. This road's called Fire Trail Road. Legend has it that this road got its name because fires would break out in the backwoods and make their way to homesteads where numerous lives were lost. This is another location that was supposedly occupied by Native Americans back in the day, before they were forced out of their tribal lands. Some people have reported to see stick Indians, or little men made of sticks with glowing red eyes along the road. The road gets very dark at night, and there are dozens of trails leading away from it into the dense forest. Local lore has it that there's a specific ghost that haunts this road, named the Fire Trail Ghost. This ghost is the spirit of a man who was driving much too fast along the gravel portion of the road towards the end. He lost control of his vehicle and his car went into the swamps. The man drowned inside his vehicle as it sank into the murky water. This reportedly happened at Cummings Lake, which is also known as Dead Man's Pond for this reason. Fire Trail Road also has a spiritual energy named the Fire Trail Walker, which is an apparition that is seen walking along the side of the road, generally on the hill, towards the crest. The walker is also reported to be seen with ghost lights at the crest of the hill. The walker is said to try to get people to focus on the road so they don't meet the same demise as our previous ghost. Motorists have reported seeing a man running next to their cars and keeping pace with them at 40 miles an hour or more up the hill. Some even reported seeing him sitting in their backseat when they look in the rearview mirror, but when they turn around, he's gone. If you're ever driving out to Kayak Point or Lake Goodwin from I-5, make sure you take Fire Trail Road and see if you can spot the walker. And that wraps up our first episode of Haunted Washington. If you're ever in search of a beautiful small town with its share of spooky sites and haunted buildings, swing by Arlington and be sure to check out these locations. Thanks for listening to the Haunted Washington podcast. If we missed any spots that you know of, or if you have suggestions for future episodes, please reach out to our Instagram at Haunted Washington. Shoot us a DM and let us know. You can support this podcast by subscribing on whatever app you're using. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can donate to our cause on our Anchor page linked in our Instagram. Tune in every other week to see if your town is going to be the next one featured on Haunted Washington.